Hello and welcome to another episode of Modular in a Week. Today I'd like to show my take on the modular rack, modular case, modular cart in this case. The reason for this has been, I saw the original photo of me making this cart and it's 4 years old. So this one has been forgotten and I haven't gotten to it. There were a lot of things happening that made me do those decisions over and over again. But recently there's been quite a big discussion over on the Discord server about how people make their racks, and I thought I'd like to share how I make my rack. So therefore I feel I need to make this video now. One of the reasons I haven't been able to do it is because this is the original drawing. This is the only copy I have. The computer files is for some reason gone, but I have redrawn this in SketchUp and we'll take a look at that. And I've also made a few alterations and a few calculations depending on what size of material you have, because the really big selling point of this is that you can make this cart out of one sheet of 12mm plywood, which is really good. And you have all this. There's even one more box down there. It's in this configuration it's 120 HP, 4 rows here, another row down there. It should be said that in the original I made it 15 centimeters deep, and that's because I actually had one module, this one, that was super deep and that I wanted to have enough room in the back so even stupidly deep modules like this would fit, and also that there would be lots of room behind for the power bus and stuff like that. I have since figured that you don't need 15 centimeters. 7.5 is good enough. So as you can see, this one doesn't have a back yet. That's because these two, I actually just cut it in half and you get twice as many boxes. I do feel you need a 15 centimeter deep box for the box where you have the power supply, which I'll talk about as well. And except for the plywood, the one piece of plywood, you might need a few different things. You need the screws, of course. If you want it to be rigid, I've used a bunch of these metal bands, I think, to give it rigidity as such. And of course, if you want to make a cart and want to be able to move the cart around, you will need casters. But except for that, it's basically one piece of plywood. Should also say the rails, instead of buying these expensive rack rails, I've actually just used sacrificial pieces of MDF, so you might need some MDF as well, that I've just cut. Either I just drill a hole once I want to put a module in, like I've done here, or I did a few videos a while back where I did 3 melodies or 3 patches while I was actually drilling holes. So that was for this rack right here, where I have one hole drilled every 5 millimeters, so I can place anything anywhere. Talk a little bit about that as well. And of course, this is a cart, but I also say you can have it as a case, because there's some scrap pieces of wood that you get if you choose to follow this plan to cut the pieces. And with that, I did these small things that you can actually put on the side, take the boxes out, use these, and you can get a small case that you can carry around with just a piece of band like this. And then you can actually set it up once you get to the venue or wherever you want to use it. If you saw my rack on Dutch Modular Fest, that was this with just these on. I believe I had 3 rows there. And I've been to a few modular meets where I do the same thing. You just connect it like that. I also added some features in the back for adding power and stuff like that. I upgraded the power. We'll go through that. So lots of things to go through. It will not be a short video, I'm already sure of that, but hope it will be worth your while. And if you want to build a rack like this, these files are available for download. Now I want to say thank you to my Patreons who support me in all of this by being Patreons, and sometimes get a glimpse behind the scenes. Not as much as I'd like, but yeah. But thank you so much to everyone who's supporting me there. And with that, let's start by looking at the drawings, I guess. If we begin with the plans for this, as I said, you can make this out of 1 sheet of plywood. Plywood is usually around 1200 by 2400 millimeters. The one I used in the original design was 1250 by 2375.8. So depending on the size of the plywood, you will have to calculate the exact size of your boxes. And so if it's exactly 1200 millimeters wide, then the boxes will be 588 millimeters on the inside. The top and bottom, these two here will be 588. And the back side will be 612 millimeters, this one here. And you can calculate this. You can calculate the top and bottom sides by taking the width of the plywood, divide by 2, and minus the thickness of the plywood. So in my case, 12 millimeters. And you calculate the back panel, width of the plywood, divide by 2, plus the thickness of the plywood. And that way you will get, because this is 1200 millimeters, minus, so divide by 2, minus 12 is 588, and divide by 2 plus 12 is 612. And this is to accommodate for when the sides come up. So if we zoom out here, we can look at the box over here. This is what the box will look like in the end. So if we look at that, you see that you add the top and bottom ones on the inside of the side panels, and then the back panel over all these sides. And you can either screw or nail them together. I used a nail gun and glue just these small nails just to keep it in place while the glue dried, and to give it some rigidity over time, I guess. So for each box, you will need 1 back panel, 2 top and bottom panels, and 2 side panels. And depending, as I said, in my original design, I did the side panels 152 times 152. I'd say keep one of those to put the power supply and stuff like that in, and then maybe really big modules, that bulky modules on the back, and then you can actually just split them in 2. So that would be, didn't add that, 76 millimeters wide if you want smaller panels. And if we look at how a plywood sheet would look like then, you would have, I'll come back to the sides of the cart up here, and then you would just add as many shelves as you'd like. Here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shelves, and way too many side panels, depending on if you do half size. So here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you wouldn't need these 3. You could actually make one more with the spare you have down here, so you could get 6 shelves if you wanted to. Important to note that there will be one small piece of not used material in here in the middle, because yeah, it doesn't line up that way, because this one is 588 and these are 152 each. So yeah. But it's all in the dimensions here. I will have a better PDF of how this looks, so you can look at that. So the sides of the cart is, I guess, a little bit more complicated part. By placing them like this, they take the least amount of material, so you can get as many shelves as possible. The one downside to this that you should look out for is that when doing this, one side will be the outside of the cart will be the back side of this board, and one will be the front side. So if you have one side that is a little bit nicer than the other one, then you might get one side that is a little bit messy. So depending on the width of this board, then it's this down here. If the plywood is wider than 1200, start at the bottom to get the most on the top shelf instead of that, and then on the foot. So you take away from the foot down here, if you look at this piece here, so you get as much material as possible up here. But basically it is, you follow this along, this is 75 degrees here, it is 72 degrees there, and then you don't need to figure that one out. And then 132 centimeters here, and then it's just sections of 152 millimeter here with 20 degrees in between, and I found 20 degrees was a really nice angle to get a nice curved. And you can see how the boards will come out, the sides of the cart will come out like this. And then basically, if we look down here, basically what you do is you make these boxes over here and you just add them in between here all the way up, and that way you get the cart. Should be said that you should use some of the scraps that you get over here or from something else to make it a bit more rigid, because it is not rigid as it is here, which I will soon show you on the cart itself. So let's go back out into the real world and look at the cart again. So back at the cart, you will see this formation that if you just cut it like the plans say, you will get this form. And then you just add the boxes like you see here. There is also a cut sheet for that. I'll put this also in the PDF file. So this is where you should add the holes, and that is just place it there. Basically it's in the middle and then half the middle out. Nothing special. And that also, if you do that, then it will also, if you choose to cut these in half, it will still be centered and still be correct aligned to the front. So I think that worked out quite well. A few things I've added. So I like to have a keyboard to play. So I added this shelf to have that on. That is not part of the files. Could be, I guess, with that scrap piece you have at the bottom. If you make 5 shelves or whatever you make, there is material left for that. On the back side, there is, as I said, one piece of a bit sturdier material. Didn't help that much. I would say if you have that piece of extra, if you don't use that, then I would just put a big plywood sheet here or a bit down to give it rigidity. What I did is, as you can see here, these metal bands is what I used, and if we do remove those with a screwdriver, you will immediately see that it is way more wobbly. So just having these 2 bands pulling it, triangulating it, I guess, makes it way more rigid than it was before. But a bigger piece of plywood would have the same effect. Also, one piece of plywood here to put all the power on, but again, it's not necessary. It was just, I did use that. And also 2 pieces of OBS on down at the bottom, so I could put casters on. So just pieces of scrap down there. Again, depending on how many shelves you make, you might have leftovers on the sheet to do a bunch of these. Here's also one more box down here that I don't use, so I just placed it there. One very important factor in a rack is of course the rails, and the way I've chose to do it is just have sacrificial boards of MDF that is just a really porous kind of board. You can buy it in smaller pieces or big pieces. I guess you could use plywood as well, but these are 8 millimeters thick, so they don't take up that much space. So they're very similar to the size of a Euro rack rail in that regard. One thing that is a bad thing about it is that, let's see if we can go in here. It will, if you just drill a screw straight into it, it will crack like this. So a couple of months ago I did a video where I just did a hole every 5 millimeters as it should be on a rail. Takes a lot of time, so I really can't recommend that, but that's one way of doing it. Or also I just usually drill a hole for all, when I want to have a module somewhere, I place it out, drill a hole and just try to get as much of the sawdust away as possible. And once you have the hole, you can place it there. I also, you can see at some places here, I add a CA glue or wood glue to make it a bit more sturdy. And this is a really good way, I think, to make a really cheap and yet simple and functional rail. It really holds things together. Now, if you only want to use this as a modular cart in your home studio or whatever, then you are basically done here, and how you connect these together maybe doesn't matter. But in my case, I'd like to have this modular so I can take it on the road, and therefore I added screws like this, and also 3D printed a small handle. That's of course not necessary, but with screws like this and then inserts on the inside, like here for example, those inserts that you just screw in place, and maybe a bit of glue to make them hold even better, makes it so you can take it apart and use these in another way. So if you want to go to a modular meetup and want to bring your modular, then you can't bring the whole cart. So if you go back into the SketchUp and you look here at this area that is not used, then you get this form again, this form here, and from that you cut these two on each end, and you get 4 of these, and then you either route or cut these slots out from these. I believe they are 5 centimeters wide. No, they are not. They are 2.5. They are 6 centimeters wide, and then the hole is about between 1 and a half centimeter. So what you then do is you just loosen the screws, and we need to remove the cable, the power cable on the back. Now we can just take these boxes out, and if things are stuck, then it's no problem. So let me take another one out. When I have it like this, I can also say that how you connect the rail, you either just use small a braid gun, just for a few small nails in there, or you use screws like I think I did here, just recess them down in the MDF. Is really simple and it won't get in the way for the modules. And then you just use these small, very nice looking wood screws that just really easily just screws into these pieces. So anyway, now we've removed 2 of these, one small and one big one, and these are not stuck, so we need to have that in mind. So what you do is you take these things you have, and we take the 2 long ones, start with those, and you can instead put these in place. I like to do it like this. So because this is just a demonstration and this one is not, these are not in place, usually I would place them towards each other like this to shield them from the outside world, but because we can't carry it like that, we put it like this. And then I just bought a piece of this nylon band on AliExpress or any other of those sites, and I cut a piece of length that I thought was nice for me to carry. I burned a hole in it with just a soldering iron, burn a hole, and then it melts together around the edges, so it's quite okay to it holds up good strength wise. So we do like so, tighten that quite well, and then that one as well, and then we'll do the same on this side. And then you have a wearable piece of modular case, I guess, that you can bring to whatever gig you have, or just a modular meetup to show off your stuff. And when you get to the place, of course, you arrive at your table or floor or wherever you're going to have your stuff standing. And then we can, depending on our configuration, we can put this different ways. This is maybe not the best way, but technically you can put it like this and just screw it in place, and it will hold very well in place. But because we have one small and one big one, maybe we should actually put it like this. Maybe something like this would work as well. So this is a nicer rack to both play with and to show off, where you still have some slanted stuff. Then you have, of course, two more. You can add them here, and you can add a third on top. Let's do that just for show. Well, with some work we got the other shelf in place. However, this one in this configuration is a bit wobbly. It might be better actually to just let it sit like so, and it will be a bit more rigid. And of course you can carry it like this as well. I should point out that now it's starting to become quite heavy to lift even, and to carry it a long way with this. I've done it with 3 shelves. That is quite heavy after a while. As many of you might know, I have one of the first things I made was a super simple power supply for my modular, where you just take a 12-volt AC adapter, plug it into the small module, which later became a bigger module, and you get plus minus 12 volts and 5 volts out to a rack. And in here there is one of those sitting on the side with the power connector to the 12-volt AC adapter pointing to the back, and then I just made a big hole here, and that one is just sticking out. So you just plug the power 12-volt AC in there, and then that is connected to the power supply, which are connected to the power panel, that where I turn it on and off, and then even more on the back you can see in here, which is also in this one, is the Eurorack power bus in there. So that is one way of doing this. Then I do like this. I use the POW with one of these 16 to 16 power cables, connect that, and then I just connect it into the next one in the line, like so. And that way I get power from one power supply to two racks. However, now when we have this many modules, if we have 3 of those racks hooked up, it is starting to become that power supply is getting a bit weak for all those modules. So what I've done in this one is I've added, there's a really good power supply called Meanwell RT65B, I believe. I'll put the name down here, the correct name. That is a small module that you put mains voltage, very dangerous, into this module, and you get plus minus 12 volts and 5 volts out. I will never recommend this because it is lethal if you touch live wires of this. And actually what you do in this case is you actually get 12 volts or 220 volts or 240 volts even into your rack. So I did on AliExpress buy these connectors that you can connect a 240 power connector in. You get an on-off switch, and then you get that on the inside. And the same way I use, once I have 12 volts, I use the POW to get that 12 that power to another row of the rack. That only works between 2 racks though. So for that I just recently built this, or I haven't built it yet, but I ordered PCBs. So this is the PDP, the power distribution panel, which is just one of those 16 connectors on the back, and on the front there are 2. This way, by putting this one in, I can, from this module, I can cascade onto 2 different rows and use this very powerful Meanwell power supply to maybe connect all the racks together, or all the rows together. But again, you really need to know what to do, what you're doing, if you want to have mains voltage in there, and really make sure that you isolate everything that has with the mains voltage to do, so there's no risk of you getting in there, or a screw coming loose, going in there and getting in the way of that. So I'm just saying, there's a lot of people using the Meanwell RT65B, and it works very well most of the time. Some people do have trouble with noise from the power supply. I have not had that problem. So that was a really thorough walkthrough of how to build this and what you can do with it, all the different configurations, both a cart and a case if you like that. So I've made PDFs of this, so you should hopefully be able to build this. If not, go over to the Discord server and discuss there. If you don't like this design, also the Discord server, as I said before, there is a huge discussion in the cases channel about different ways of making both rack shelves and cases and carts and If you don't like this design, you should go over there and look at some of the designs other people have made. Loads of interesting design choices and ways to solve things. Worth taking a look at that if you didn't like this. Hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.